Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Rockville and Gaithersburg. Thank you so much for checking in to this week's Kibbitzing with Kagan. I am delighted to welcome Glendora Hughes from the Maryland Commission for Civil Rights. Glendora, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on your program. Should be fun.
It's going to be fun. So you have had an extraordinary career at the commission. 43 years, is that right?
Has it been that long?
I think that's what my research has shown. That's a long damn time.
It doesn't feel like it.
You started when you were 5. We're aware of that. But,
yes, I was a mere child.
Yes. So tell us the trajectory of your role there as general counsel now. But what have been some of the issues you've worked on, and why have you been inspired enough to stick around for your whole career?
Well, part of it, I started being interested in civil rights way back in high school. And my father was in the military, so I traveled and we lived in California, and I was in California during the Black Panther Party appearance in Sacramento. We were stationed in Sacramento, and then also the trial of Angela Davis. And I followed that in the newspaper all the way through, and that piqued my interest in civil rights and discrimination. And then when my father retired, we came back to Maryland. I went to Maryland College Park, then I went to Maryland Law School. And when I was getting ready to graduate, I basically was looking for where can I go and do civil rights. And I stumbled upon the Maryland Commission on Human Relations, and I started really with 2 pieces of a contract of 2 persons who were leaving. 5 months on one contract and 4 months on another, staff attorney. There was no guarantee. And when the ending of the final contract came, one of the assistant general counsels resigned, and I was hired to start my career at the commission.
And that was the Commission on Human Relations. It got renamed.
It was the Maryland Commission on Human Relations when I started, and then the name changed, I think, in 2002, thereabouts, to the Maryland Commission on Civil Rights.
And the reason for that?
Well, because I think people were confused as to what we did. And so we would get many calls like human resources and social security and food stamps. And, and we're like, we're not human services. That's not what we do. So
that's funny.
It was, I recommend, it's like, we need to change our name to capture what we actually do so people don't get confused.
Yes.
And that was the motivation behind changing our name, so that it would reflect the kind of work that we were doing.
That makes sense. So discrimination is always and forever just too present in our lives. Tell me, start with, I don't even know where to start. I have so many questions for you. Start with microaggressions and small ways that we offend our friends and colleagues. And whether you intervene at that level or whether you guys work on the bigger battles.
Well, sometimes when the complaints come to us, it is the reason why the person feels discriminated against is because of some microaggression or behavior. And part of why we exist is to try to mitigate and resolve those before they become a big problem. Yes. So many times we have fact-finding conferences, we bring the parties in, and we have them hear each other's positions. And sometimes, many times, the employer may not recognize that their behavior gave the impression or caused the employee to feel that they were being treated differently because of their race, because of their gender. And when there is an explanation, many times we're able to resolve it short of having to go the full-blown litigation. What we have found that many times people just want behavior to stop or to be heard or to be treated fairly. They're not out to get a big paycheck. But once they are ignored and there is no interaction, then that feeling changes where it's like, okay, I want you to pay because
Right.
look what you've done to me. And
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
earlier we can intervene, the
Mhm.
better, we're able to get people to understand what's going on. But many times folks are not conscious of their own bias. They're not
Mhm.
conscious of their own behavior and carry out certain actions that cross the line and are discriminatory.
Right. So how many counties have local human relations or civil rights commissions? When should people go to the state and when should they stay local?
Well, there's a different sense, even if they have a local agency. We have 23, 24 counties.
Mhm.
There are only a handful that have enforcement agencies, like Montgomery County, Howard County, Baltimore City,
Mhm.
Baltimore County, I believe are the ones that have enforcement ability and contracts with EOC. And then you have counties like Anne Arundel and Hartford and some of the other counties that have human relations types or community relations type um, agencies, but they don't have enforcement authority.
Got it.
They
Got
can't
it.
investigate. They can try to mediate. They can try to provide community education and that sort of thing. And then you have counties that have absolutely nothing,
Right.
which we are statewide because we're able to receive complaints from those counties where people
Absolutely.
have nowhere to go to
Right.
bring their grievances.
Right. So let's talk about the range of protected classes. So
Uh-huh.
sometimes people just think of race, but
Right.
we're really talking about, as you indicated, gender, but it's also sexual orientation, sexual identity, disability status. Why don't you talk about the range?
Well, we have a great deal of ranges. Our new protected classes are sexual orientation, gender identity. We have genetic information coverage. We have marital
My
status.
predecessor, Senator Forehand.
Absolutely.
On that.
Yes, she did. She was.
Mhm.
I worked with her closely in getting that passed.
Yeah.
We have marital status discrimination,
Mhm.
national origin, color, religion. And when in terms of statistically, the number in terms of the top protected class is disability has passed race as the top protected class that have of types of complaints we get. But even we higher than protected classes is retaliation. That both federal and state, our numbers are in a sense the highest number of complaints we get both nationally and statewide, and I suspect locally, is retaliation, where people are being punished for complaining.
That's a problem.
That's a very big problem. And we've seen that shift take place in the last, I would say the last 5 or 6 years, where that number kept going up in comparison to the other protected classes.
So how does somebody decide whether it's like, oh, you're just being too sensitive, get over it, versus they have a credible, authentic, valid complaint?
Well, one of the things that when I do training and go out and speak to employers is hear people out. Take what they have to say seriously. Yes, there are people who are chronic complainers and serial complaint. We see them, they come to us, and we have people who, we call them frequent flyers.
Yes.
But there are many situations that happen in employment or in housing that if people just hear the person's complaint and take it seriously and address it, they'll never see us. But what happens, people come to us when they're ignored.
Yes.
They usually try to go to the source and say, look, this is what's bothering, this is the problem. And they get blown off.
Yeah.
And they don't get a response, or they're not heard, or they get told you're too sensitive,
Right.
Get over it, you know, be strong, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's easy for the person who's not harmed to say that.
Right.
And so that's when they end up coming to us or EEOC because they're just totally ignored.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, in my life, in my teens, my 20s, and my 30s, I brought 3 different human relations complaints. One was gender, one was marital status, and one was religion. And sometimes it's like people just don't even see through their blind spots. So
No.
I worked a part-time summer job at a movie theater, and the young women sold candy and sold tickets, and guys were the movie projectors and the manager. Guess which jobs paid more?
The managers and the projectors.
Right. And they just didn't see it. Well, that's a guy's job. I was like, no, it's not. And yeah. So,
or even the fact that, oh, we're saying it's a guy's job and they need more money.
right.
Well, and I mean, we recently had the case in a Pratt library where they pay the guy who left, came back, doing the same thing as the women who were there. They
Yeah.
paid him like $10,000 or $15,000 more, and you know they got dinged on it.
Good.
There was a federal lawsuit, and they got dinged on it. And it's like, why did you not see that? That's not, you can't do that.
No.
But there is a blind spot where people, if it doesn't affect me, I don't see what the problem is.
Right. Of course. So let's pivot to Freddie Gray, George Floyd, and their tragic murders and the uprising followed. Do you think that people have gotten more sensitive, more aware? And when I say people, I mean majority people, and we're not even majority anymore, but we're not of color, white folks. Do you think there's been a greater awareness and sensitivity, or is it still same old, same old?
I think that for the moment, it's usually what happens. People were sensitized. I think just like during the 60s, the civil rights movement, when they televised the hoses being turned on children and people being beaten and bloodied, that shocked the conscience of the nation to actually see that. And I think that seeing the George Floyd murder happen in real time and the total dehumanizing and unconcern of the officer committing the murder and the other officers enabling it shocked the conscience. And it won for Black Americans. It validated what we've been saying all along. This is not new. This has been happening. It's just that this got on video. And I think now there's so much that is being videoed and shown that now that even that's being desensitized. Like, well, we've seen that before, if you just did what the officer told you to do, they wouldn't have killed you. Jesus. But it was a traffic stop.
Yeah, right.
Or you were walking down the street minding your business and people jumped out of a car and threw you up against the wall for no reason. But there's a I guess it's an unwillingness to be uncomfortable and recognize that this is our culture and that the only way to change it is to acknowledge it and educate yourself to change it. And there's just an unwillingness to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. So sometimes it's discomfort and sometimes it's education.
That too.
So religious differences, the anti-Muslim, the anti-Semitism. We just saw the hostage taking at a synagogue in Texas, but there were, there huge murders in Charleston, South Carolina, and in Pittsburgh, Tree of Life Synagogue. Any thoughts? I know there's no.
I think a lot of it is, to me, a lot of it is fear of the unknown. So if I don't know what Muslims do, I don't know, I have never visited a mosque and understand the peacefulness of the Quran and Islam. If I've never been to a synagogue and understand the Jewish faith and religion, if I don't go to a Catholic church and understand the mass and the beliefs that would give me understanding, and instead the only visual or information I get is from the media,
Right.
which is a terrorist, attack, or a negative visual of persons of that faith,
Yes.
then that's what people take in, which basically supports their preconceived notion about
Yes.
who the other is.
Yeah.
And when people are given the opportunity or educate to meet people that are different than themselves and realize that everybody wants the same thing,
Right.
to have a good life, raise their children, go to school, live, that they're not the enemy. But
Right.
if the only thing you see at 11 o'clock news is the negative of any group,
Right. Right.
then it creates the stereotype, and it feeds these stereotypes that create the bias in people's minds that these people are to be feared.
Yeah.
Black people, Black men are to be feared, because all we see on 11 o'clock news is them being criminals. We don't see them being anything else.
Right.
And I don't have any, I don't know how many white friends where I encountered them and they talked about how they grew up with no Black friends.
Mm-hmm.
So they had, or grew up in a community where there was no Black people.
Homogeneous.
So,
yeah.
right. So you have no concept. The flip side, I have Black people, who grow up in totally Black communities who have the same kind of bias or concern about white people because they've never had any white friends.
Right. Right.
So assumptions are made and people write their own narrative about who we are as people.
I want to move on. The LGBTQ community has long been persecuted, back to Stonewall riots in New York, to trans issues and so much more today. How many of those cases do you see? And is there something that we should be looking at or doing?
One of the things is get more from the community to file complaints. If you look at our annual report and the numbers, I don't think they are indicative of the discrimination and the harm that persons with who are the LGBTQ community have.
Yeah.
I think also part of that is similarly trying to avoid conflict and keep their jobs, and so they're not willing to file a complaint. That if they can hold on, they will tolerate some things that are just impossible. I know one of the things that we would do, particularly when it came to the trans community, when employers were discriminating against a person who was transitioning, and the whole bathroom thing would come up.
Well, we're going to bring that up, actually. Let me interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
I'm sponsoring a bill this year saying if one toilet, in a bathroom, that it should be gender neutral, so in a public bathroom. So restaurants, community centers, so many places are already doing this.
Yes, yeah. A lot of the restaurants have changed their men and women bathrooms to unisex. You can go to any bathroom. And one of the things that we were able to do when we would call the employer and say, look, we would educate the employer. No, you can't do this. He doesn't have, she doesn't have to go to another floor.
Right.
No, you cannot make your decision based on how everybody else feels about it.
Right.
And once they were educated, they would say, okay. They would say, look, she can go to wherever bathroom and you all just have to get over it.
Right.
And so a lot of it was just us calling up the employer, educating the employee, and then the employer would say, okay, that's what the law is. We're here to debate the law.
So as soon as people are approached, almost everybody goes, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because if you think about whether it's your own home, a hotel room, a hospital room, people any gender use those bathrooms. So why not?
Well, in Europe,
And if you think about people with disabilities, don't make people go all the way, as you said, to another floor or all the way down to the end of the hall. There's a stall right there. Let's just make it easy for folks.
mhm. I mean, in Europe, they men and women go to the same bathroom
Yes.
in many places in Europe. I mean,
Yes.
that was, when I went over there, it was like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're not stretching it. It's just if there's one toilet. That's just
Yeah.
really basic. So let's move on. Do you have a legislative agenda? Are there bills that you're watching other than the bathroom bill, which is sitting on my desk and I haven't filed it. I hope to file it tomorrow, actually. Are there bills or issues that you'll be watching for?
Well, right now we're watching a hate crimes bill, a couple of hate crimes bill. One bill, I think it's, I don't want to flip them. I think it's
Don't.
HB.
Don't give
no,
me bill
SB.
numbers, but just why don't you just describe
Well,
it?
one is providing civil remedy for victim of a hate crimes, because presently it's the crime and the person gets convicted, but the victim who may have suffered harm or injury or property destroyed, there's no remedy for them. They get nothing except maybe I apologize,
Right.
which, good luck with that. And so I think one bill is going to provide that option of the person being able to bring a civil action to remedy the harm that they suffered as a result of the hate.
Okay.
And then another one is giving false statements to the police, calling the police on people because of their race, and lying to the police as to why they're calling them, saying,
I have
this person
related to my 911 because that's called swatting, and people summon a SWAT team.
Right.
That guy who lives next door to me just murdered his wife, and SWAT team shows up with guns, all that, and the two of them are just sitting there watching TV and
right.
all that. It was just phony baloney, and it's dangerous. People.
It's very well. This is the because that understanding that the police will come to a Black person and aggressively.
Yeah.
For instance, the guy that was just bird watching, and the woman calls the police and just out and out lies saying he's assaulting her, and here come he could have got killed.
Yep.
And you had these incidents all around the country where people deliberately call the police on Black people and exaggerate what is taking place, and the police come with guns drawn, and people have could easily be killed as a result.
No.
So I think this bill is making it a hate crime to do that under those circumstances.
Good.
Deliberately call on based on race or gender, what have you, that would cause someone to get harmed as a result of a false statement to the police.
So, so we're going to,
and then a reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities in applying for a job. That's another.
Okay. Good. I'm glad to know about those. The hate crime has even applied in this election year, has applied to candidates of color, and having people, there's someone who's lurking, who's going door to door and
in Oregon
campaigning. That's what they do.
Senator, she had the police called on her because she was out campaigning.
That's insane. It happened in my district, actually.
Wow, did it?
Yeah, it did. It's not just in conservative rural areas. It was just actually and offensive. But we're going to wrap up here, Glendora.
Sure.
I've got my fast five quick questions for to let people get to know you a little better. And so the first question is, who is a shero or hero of yours, living or dead?
A shero for me was Angela Davis, because she's what sparked me to go into civil rights.
Bless her memory then. Question 2, you've lived in Baltimore a very long time. If you could live anywhere in the world, where might you consider?
Um, I would consider California because I lived out there and I liked the laid back approach to living in California.
Okay, love that. So you've been at the Commission for Civil Rights for 43 years. If you could switch jobs with anyone for a day, what would you choose?
I would choose if I was young and had the athletic ability, I would switch jobs with a WNBA player.
Love that. That's great. All right. Mystics or some other, any particular team?
Well, Mystics, yeah, I love the Mystics.
Okay.
I have season tickets.
Nice. Thank you for supporting women athletes. Good for you. Question 4. What is one food you absolutely won't eat?
Okra,
Okay. Okay. That is
slimy.
first.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I get that actually. And the last question, the one that I ask everyone, Glendora Hughes, what is your hidden secret superpower? What is a super talent that you have that most folks can't do?
Wow, superpower.
Yeah.
I think I'm good at discerning people and discerning situations.
Nice. Well, that's super valuable. Great.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that.
Great. Well, Glendora, thank you so much for kibitzing with me today. And thank you for your extraordinary career and your passion to trying to keep Maryland moving forward on civil rights and engaging with folks. And people should learn more by going to their website. We're going to have a social media page on this and learn and report. If you think there's something going on, report it and the commission will look into it.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time. Good.
Thank
Me
you.
too. Me too. I look
right.
forward to seeing you in person before too long. Stay well.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.